So we've had a little bit of a lifeline in cryptocurrency. Crypto's not stopped moving up since the weekend. Is the bull run back on? Today's video is going to break it all down for you, as we do have a week filled with data. More economic data, which is really what we want to be seeing. And we hope that Trump isn't going to be talking at all throughout this week, but he is pretty cheesed off about a portrait that said that it's been, well, it's not so complimentary, but that is irrelevant. More importantly, Arthur Hayes' price projection on Bitcoin has now changed. He said he was expecting Bitcoin to go to 70k, then 77 is the bottom, but now he's looking for 110 and then 76 before it hits 250. No one knows where it's going to go, no matter what position you are in the space of crypto. So what we're going to do is going to highlight some key levels, because Bitcoin has taken a very important zone on the daily time frame. My goal is to effectively get you to understand what needs to happen in and around this zone over the next few days to solidify the idea that Bitcoin is going to continue to maybe make the claim towards the 110,000 zone, and what we need to be mindful of in case it doesn't. So if you are new, welcome to Traders Reality. My name is Tino. Let's get with the program and break it all down for you. So to get it all started off, the stock market seems to be rallying pretty well this morning. Quickly going over to the NASDAQ, you can see that we've got some very interesting volume coming into play. Bottom right of this chart, you can see we've got this big blue bar that's crossed over the 50-day average. Now, I said last week that before we really want to start buying stocks, we need to see 3 days of accumulation. That means we need to see 3 blue bars closing above the 50-day average, because that's going to tell us that investors are actually starting to step in and buy stock. But the day is still young. The NASDAQ has gapped up at the open. If you go over to here, you can see that NASDAQ is trading outside of the Asian session. Right there, you can see the little gap, and that gap sits between 20,046 and, of course, the 19,976. Problem is they did this last week, and they ended up closing the gap in the same day. But right now, you can see the NASDAQ is trading somewhat positively. Does that mean investors' expectations of the future are looking good? Well, we go into it all and we can see that, yep, they're looking pretty optimistic about things. And we did say last week that institutional leverage traders are stepping in and buying stocks on a discount, with the idea that if there's going to be a rally to the upside, that means they can effectively sell into those rallies. More so, we've got some news on regarding the tariffs themselves. Trump is now being a little bit back and forth. I mean, he is complaining about the fact that his portrait is absolutely terrible and he's not too happy about that. But more importantly, the tariffs themselves are going to be sectorial. So it's not as aggressive as he's made out to be. And investors are starting to take that as a sign that maybe, okay, we don't really need to worry too much about tariffs. Today, we've got some news coming out, which is the flash manufacturing data for the US dollar. And that's going to tell us whether or not the economy is actually performing well, and they are expecting an expansion. What do I mean by expansion? Well, you can see we've already had data coming out for the French, the German, and of course the Eurozone overall. It is somewhat mixed between the three groups. However, we're waiting for the US data, which will be out at 1:45 UK time, which is effectively 9:45 Eastern Standard. Now, what you've got to understand is when they say expansion, it means a reading above 50. Now, if we do get a reading above the actual estimates, because we've got 51.9 and 51.2. If they actually do come in higher or at those figures, that would solidify Powell's known fact that he believes that the economy is doing well, which is why the Fed is not so keen on cutting the rates just yet, but they just want to see if inflation can actually go down at the rates that we currently have. Now, going into cryptocurrency, it's been quite interesting. Check this out. Arthur Hayes has now stepped up and changed his price projection. So before it was 70,000, now it's going to be 76, but now it's going to be 110, then 76, then 250. In other words, no one knows what Bitcoin's going to do. I mean, we can justify, we've got some inflows coming into cryptocurrency, which is happy days, but more importantly, the Arkham is showing some development overall. We go into the actual balances of what's going on here. I'm not really seeing any big selling happening on the chain itself to suggest our investors are getting in or out. But remember, as we said before last week, there are new whales coming into cryptocurrency, and new whales are not here for the idea of crypto. They're here to sell. They want to make some money and get out and get ready for the next opportunity. Now, when we go into the actual CoinAnk itself, where's my CoinAnk? There we go. You can see that we've witnessed a lot of selling with cryptocurrency, and crypto's been doing very well over the weekend. Over the weekend, we were projecting this to see prices go to the upside, and this is the weekly review that I do for the Platinum members to give them a heads up on what to expect and how the week has been going. And I discuss certain strategies in this. In this strategy, I speak about the importance of the 15-minute candle and what's it made up, sorry, the 1 hour candle and what's it made up of. And it's a focus on 4 candlesticks that make up the 1 hour time frame candle and how you can use those candlesticks to work out if the 1 hour candle is going to close favorably to the upside or to the downside, depending on what position you're looking for. But what we were talking about this weekend was we were expecting Bitcoin to mark higher. So we wanted to see Bitcoin clear the 86,154 from the lows, and we were effectively trading towards the vector candle, which is this red vector candle right here. The same logic was the same for Ethereum. We wanted to see Ethereum come up, but Ethereum didn't have a vector candle region right here. But if Bitcoin goes up, Ethereum goes up. That's the story. And then we finally had Solana. She had a vector candle region right here, which we were expecting them to go and take over the weekend. And then, of course, as you can see, Bitcoin has made the move to the upside. You can see it's done very well to climb up and recover those vector candle regions alongside Ethereum, and then, of course, alongside Solana too. So that was a nice little move to the upside. So if you want that sort of flavor and get those sort of trade setups, get over to the Traders Reality website where you'll get access to these sort of setups that I provide every single day. Everything you need is in the description of this video. Now moving on. What I said about Bitcoin earlier on and the important range that it needs to hold. Check this out. The daily time frame. Bitcoin. I said this before, and I said this back here, right? So if you go back to the date, where was it? Yeah, the 20th of February. Go and watch the videos from the 20th of February where I mention what Bitcoin needs to do on the daily time frame. Unless we get 3 daily candle closes above the 50 EMA, which will be this line right here, then what we're witnessing is just a small rally to the upside with the intention of price to come back down again. What's my logic? My logic is within line with the stock market. If Bitcoin's going up and the stock market's going up, happy days. That's what we're witnessing. The NASDAQ, as you can see, is trading positive. So where are we with the NASDAQ? Here we go. Right down here. NASDAQ trading positive. Bitcoin trading positive. Okay? You've also got the euro marking, it's pulling back a little bit, but it has seen success to the upside. And what we have been noticing, if you do pay attention to this, is the NASDAQ has effectively been consolidating as so. And then you've got the euro doing this. Looks like they're negatively correlated. How? Well, what's the difference between the euro and the NASDAQ? The NASDAQ is its own thing. Well, what's it got to do with euro? Besides the fact that the euro has been receiving a lot of hype with regards to defense spending by Germany, that means money is being printed, money is being moved in Germany for defense. So that justifies why the euro is moving up. Not to forget that the CME rate swap and the implied rate differential, that's also suggesting that you can get up to 1.9% return on exchanging dollars for euros. So there's one incentive there for institutional investors to take advantage of that spread. But also, what we are witnessing is there are a lot of people transitioning from stocks in the US to the euro. So whenever you see the euro pumping up against the NASDAQ, it means that they are effectively selling US stock. So NASDAQ goes down, the dollar goes down, and when you witness the euro going up, it's an indication that investors are favoring European stock. And we highlighted this last week that there was quite a significant amount of inflows into European-based stocks. Now, how long is that going to sustain itself? Well, as we said earlier on, that everyone's feeling a little bit optimistic about US stocks right now. So then that could justify why the euro could be coming down and the NASDAQ could effectively be moving back up. But remember, investors' expectations of the future are somewhat short term. We understand that by the bonds market because it's not really doing too much right now. Going back into what I was saying about Bitcoin and what we need to see happening. In order for Bitcoin to sustain itself and go in line with what Arthur Hayes is saying with his ping pong price projections, what we need to look for Bitcoin doing is to get above this 50 EMA. The second Bitcoin gets above this 50 EMA line right here, and you see 3 candle closes above this above this moving average range, then you are improving the odds that Bitcoin is more than likely going to continue to the upside and potentially try and take out this red vector candle zone over here, and of course try and make claim towards that 96 zone. Don't aim for big price movements with Bitcoin. Aim for surefire ones. In other words, if you start seeing volume accumulating on the NASDAQ by the principle of what we said over here with accumulation on the bottom right over here with the volume bars, then you're adding weight to US investors spending money buying stock. That means people are going to be getting involved in Bitcoin. If we see 3 days of accumulation, bottom right here, if we see 3 days of accumulation on volume on the NASDAQ, we can make the assumption that Bitcoin is probably going to see the same fate, okay? Now, Bitcoin is a little bit more volatile than the NASDAQ itself. Well, actually, I beg to differ, but Bitcoin can be volatile. So what we're looking for this week is Bitcoin to try and sustain itself above the moving average. Now, if they do succeed above the moving average, the third candle that closes above that point will pretty much trigger Bitcoin to start making movements to the upside. But we've effectively got this week to see if that's going to be the case. The longer Bitcoin stays below this moving average, the more inclined I am to believe that maybe Bitcoin's not done with this rally to the downside. Now remember, this is how bear markets work. They form a structure, they drop, they retrace, they continue, they retrace, they continue, and then form a structure which effectively resets the cycle and continues to the upside. As we head into the open of the marketplace, just remember, Monday is deemed as a false move week beginning. What you don't want to do is you don't want to leave profits on the table and not pay yourself in case the market does correct. Now, I'm not here to spoil your party, but that's the way the market works. If we only go over to last week, they did exactly the same thing, and we had exactly the same information. But this time we know exactly where we are with the FOMC. We know that the Fed is in a wait and see mode, and the data today that comes out regarding the US manufacturing data, if that doesn't come through, or if it does come through and shows that the economy is expanding and doing well, we got no reason to cut the rates, and the market might not like that. Also, watch out for Trump. I've got a feeling he's going to be complaining today. Be sure to like and subscribe, ladies and gentlemen, and I'll tune in to you soon. Peace.